I woke up in a sort of daze. My mouth itched, and for some reason I couldn't swallow. I tried to sit up, and then I was pierced by a pain behind my eyes, and a flash of light blinded me for a moment. Shit, I moaned, and the sound of my voice echoed like gravel on a tin roof. When I managed to quiet the pounding in my head to a low roar, I tried to sit up again, but my insides were doing somersaults, and the room seemed to be spinning frantically. My balance slipped away from me, and I slipped off the edge of the bed and fell to the floor. The jolt made me grit my teeth. Saliva flowed between my lips and ran down my chest. My stomach rose to my throat like a salmon swimming against the current and stopped somewhere between my neck and my frantically beating heart. Gasping and hoping like hell I wasn't going to throw up, I rolled onto my face and shifted into a crawling position. Myra? I groaned questioningly. The house was so quiet. No one answered. I groaned, forcing one knee and then one hand to shuffle across the floor in tiny steps and frantically make my way down the hallway towards the bathroom. Myra? I called out again. There was no reply. I crossed the threshold and the bathroom tiles were cool on my feverish hands and knees. There she was, gleaming white porcelain, beckoning me to her, promising support. Come on, Jimmy boy, the toilet said. Let me help you. Shit, a toilet talking to me. What the hell? Myra! I tried calling again, a little louder. No one answered, except the toilet. She's gone. With the boys. To mommy's. I stopped crawling, looking at the lid. Are you talking to me? Nothing happened. I waited, playing possum with the toilet. Once again, nothing happened. Cautiously, I continued my search of the bathroom and made my way to the toilet. I lifted the lid, expecting it to say, "Ah." Nothing. I leaned over the rim, peered into the clear water and saw my shadow-smeared face reflected in it. And then I let my insides give in, and I threw up. Let's leave it at that. I never saw my face again. When I felt better and my lungs stopped burning, I got to my feet and washed my face in the sink. I dipped my hands under the water again and again and wiped my skin with it. I took a sip of water, swished it around and rinsed my mouth. Face, neck, mouth, face, neck, mouth, face, neck, mouth, face, neck, mouth, scalp, face, neck, mouth. Finished, I stood up and looked at my reflection in the mirror. Damn, Jimmy, you look like a real devil. I ran my fingers through my hair, pushing it away from my face. Even the follicles ached. Aspirin, I said to the hungover bastard staring back at me, opened the toilet and took 2 pills, then 2 more. Looking into the toilet bowl, I flushed, making a grimace of disgust. Feeling ready to go, I staggered out of the bathroom and headed to the kitchen to get something to eat. Shit! I stood in shock, looking at the wreckage that was our kitchen. The cabinets were smashed to pieces. 4 of them had doors broken off, and one was barely hanging on, leaning crazily against the wall. Dishes, glasses, mugs, bottles, jars, everything in each cabinet lay in a heap on the floor. The coffee pot was hurled into the sink, shards of black plastic flying in different directions as if from a blow. One of the 4 kitchen chairs smashed through the wall, 2 legs stuck in the masonry, and the chair itself hovered 3 feet off the ground. Oh shit, Jimmy. I couldn't even figure out how to get to the spot for fear of cutting my legs. What the hell did you do? I got the worst of it when I saw John's plastic yellow and red Elmo cereal bowl smashed to pieces under the trash can that used to serve as our silverware drawer. Asshole, I said to myself. You're a goddamn asshole. I went back to the bedroom where I got dressed, including my work boots. From there, I went to the garage and grabbed a vacuum cleaner, a pair of gloves, and a snow shovel. Back at the scene of the destruction, I shook my head, cursing my own stupidity. I went to the phone and dialed Tim's number. It rang 3 times before he sleepily answered. Hello? Tim? Jim Skelly. Do you have wheels? Jimmy? Yeah, do I have wheels? Why? Are we going somewhere? No, man. I need your help, dude. Come to my house, bring your work gloves. Sure, dude. I'll be there in an hour or less. He sounded more awake. You okay? No, Tim, not really. I pulled myself together and took a deeper breath. Just stop by and see me when you get here. I hung up and called Jerry. On his way, please leave Grace at home. Brian, I'll be there by 11, don't worry, buddy. My dad. What the hell did you do, Jimmy? I'll be there and bring your mom. And even reached out to Scott. Dude, patchogue or not, I'll be there now. Finished with the calls, I opened the front door and set about cleaning the kitchen, one shovel at a time. Within the next hour, my friends and family showed up and rushed over to help. They were sympathetic to my appearance and reluctance to talk until we had removed all the shards of glass from the floor and cleaned the countertops. Tim and Brian held the cabinets in place while Jerry and I worked on screwing them in. Scott fixed the drawer fronts, and Mom and Dad were constantly running to the local Home Depot to buy what I needed. Every time someone tried to strike up a conversation with me, I would wave them off and repeat, "It's my fault. Let's fix it, please." Finally, everything that could be done was done. I called Luigi's and asked for 3 pizzas and a dozen paper plates and cups to be delivered. The food was delivered, and my assistant sat at the table and ate with me, with the conversation awkward and clumsy at best. The ice was melted by my father. Okay, Jimmy, time's up. What the hell happened? The house looks like a bomb hit it, and Myra and my grandchildren aren't here. I sighed. Myra took the boys to Stephanie's for the weekend, Dad. Why? Did you do that shit when she was here? His face turned even redder at the thought of me destroying the house in front of my wife and kids. I held up my hands and looked at him with a chuckle. No shit like that, Dad. Myra left because she said I was drinking too much. Tim laughed. Does that even happen? Jerry gave me an appraising look. Look, Jimmy, we don't see each other that often, but I have to admit it's not like you. Sure, you get attached to beer, Brian added, but you've always been like this. What the hell do your boys know? My mom asked, putting her hands on her hips. Are you in Myra's head? You just said you don't come here that often, so how the hell do you know? She looked up at me, green eyes flashing piercingly. Well, Jimmy, do you drink a lot? No, Mom, no more than usual. I can vouch for him, Mrs. S. Tim cut in, covering his heart with his hand. Scout's honor. He doesn't drink more than usual, and he's often the most sober he's ever been. Tim, you sure as hell aren't a scout now or ever, my father said, frowning and folding his hands on his huge belly. Quit roughing it, Jimmy. Are you drinking more than usual? I don't think so, Pops. I swear. Well, Myra apparently thinks so. Jimmy, my mother began, do you drink in the mornings before work? Sometimes. Not always. Maybe if I've had a really bad night's sleep. Yep. And when you get home, do you drink? Well, yeah. The best way to end the day is with a beer or two. Isn't there a rule or law that says a man can't have a beer at the end of a hard day? What's that, Iran? Don't be rude to Mom, my father growled. So you drink beer in the morning and at the end of the day. Awesome, he frowned. You sound like my brother Patrick. Goddamn loser. Hey, Pops, that's bullshit. Patrick's a goddamn alcoholic. And why? Tim asked. Does he go to meetings? Scott reached out and stroked Tim's neck. Dude, trust that you have a brain and shut the hell up, okay? My mom gave everyone a furious look. Listen, Jimmy lives here with Myra, and if she thinks there's a problem, then Jimmy should take it up with Myra. She thinks you drink too much, then it's up to you to decide if you want to work with your wife and do the right thing, or not work with your wife, upset her, and seriously piss off your mother. Jimmy, my father pointed his thumb at the kitchen walls, how did the devils get in the house? I frowned, furrowing my brow to think of a suitable answer. When she said she was leaving, I was so pissed. I thought, what the hell are you leaving for? But I couldn't say it because I was stunned that she was leaving over a couple beers. So when she left, I snapped and trashed the kitchen. But it's funny because I don't remember trashing it. Jesus, son. I nodded. I know. Tell me about it. So, apparently I lost my temper and smashed every damn plate and glass and everything else we own. And then I got drunk as hell and slept until almost 10. My breath choked in my throat. And Myra's hopefully coming home Sunday afternoon, and I can't let her find out what a goddamn asshole I am and how badly I screwed things up. She asked me to quit drinking and cut back, and I screwed it all up in one day and then trashed our kitchen and got so drunk, I don't remember doing it. Jimmy boy, we're your friends. Jerry came over and patted me on the shoulder. We'll clean up the apartment and help you with it, man. You just have to want to do it. All the help means nothing if you don't want it yourself. I can't tell you how much help I need, Jerry. Brian stood up. Look, let me run home. I know we have leftover glasses and stuff that we haven't even had a chance to use. They're yours if you want them. Dude, Tim said, shoving his hands in his pockets. I know we're tight, but I don't have anything to give you. But what I can do is get beer from your garage. After all, it's better than here. My friends and family offered as much help and support as they could. New dishes, glasses, a trip to Pathmark. I didn't want anyone from Myra's Stop and Shop to see my parents go in there, buy a bunch of stuff for the house and somehow bring it back. For supplies, a couple of simple plywood fronts for the cabinets, and a can of stain remover, which soon followed as well. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were pretty much done. The kitchen didn't look quite the same as it had before, no big deal, and there were gaps in the stacks of plates and bowls that hadn't been there before. But it was enough that my family and I could live normally and not have to eat Dixie cups and stacked pizza boxes. After my buddies went their separate ways and my endless gratitude and appreciation poured over their heads as they drove away, Dad and Mom sat me down at the kitchen table and started on me. Jimmy, everyone gets one. This was yours. I looked at my dad in disgust. You think I planned this? You think I liked asking for help? You think I want to do this shit again? He shook his head. I know it's not part of your plans, you stubborn bastard. Nobody plans shit like this. But remember what you've been through here. Remember how you felt this morning. And maybe next time you'll realize what you're missing and not clutter up the damn place and then get drunk out of your mind. Jimmy, we love you. Mom put her hand on my forearm and squeezed it. That's all we want to say. We love you and we want to help. We love Myra and the boys, and we want you all to have a happy life. But we can't be here. You're an independent person and have to make decisions that will affect everyone around you. What happens if I need you? What happens if I need help? My father frowned. If this is the kind of nonsense we've come to settle, rest assured it won't happen. That's the whole point. Son, search your heart. Is there any truth to the fact that Myra is worried about your drinking? I thought about the hidden devastation, the lies, the strange gray secretions, and the things I was having trouble remembering. My boss drinking outside the 7-Eleven, that damn toilet talking to me this morning. I didn't really consider myself a drunk, unless you compare me to actual drunks. But something was going on, and I had to be honest with myself. I don't know, Mom. Maybe. It's not out of control, and I'm sure there's nothing wrong with it, but I have to admit Myra might be right. Jesus, Jimmy, my brother's a goddamn alcoholic. He's a glass of whiskey away from his liver giving him the bird, and he died from it. He was like you when he was younger, full of shit, piss, and vinegar. Ready for a fight and thinks he's everything. Stupid red-headed son of a bitch thought nothing of drinking his damn life away until one day he realized he had no life. You want to be like Patrick? He's my brother, and I love him to death, but I can also tell when it's gone too far. And Patrick went too far years ago. Dad leaned back in his chair, interlacing his fingers over his bulging stomach, and gave me a critical look. So we have my brother. He has no wife, no kids. Thank God he has them. No real job. He's on government assistance. He's sick with jaundice 5 days out of 9. And he's gotten to the point of such goddamn desperation that he sometimes goes to diners and drinks and smokes and sucks on an unfinished beer when no one's looking. Christ, 2 months ago I got a call to pick him up from goddamn Yapbank because he'd been arrested for his problem. It wasn't me, Dad. No, It wasn't me. But if you don't learn anything from all this shit, you will. My brother may be a goddamn drunk, but I'll be damned if my son is going to be one too. Shane, that's enough. Mom threw a deep look at Dad that I remembered from childhood meant the next word out of my mouth would result in a punch in the ear. Apparently, Dad remembered that too, because he shrugged and crossed his ankles as if his thought was finished. Satisfied that he had heard it, Mom turned to me again and continued. Jimmy, if you think you might have a problem, you can go talk to someone. Who, Mom? AA meetings at the library? Would that help? I don't know enough about it to tell you, but I was thinking more like someplace like psychotherapy. Your Aunt Sharon was helped very well by an outpatient program at someplace in Suffolk. She had to meet there for a few hours every day, and they really worked on her, but she got better. My dad chuckled. Yeah, for about 6 months, until she snapped at Penny's wedding. Shane, at least she tried. What did Patrick do, besides steal $50 out of your wallet when he came to your house for dinner on St. Patrick's Day? Do you know I didn't give that back either? Mother, I can't go to Suffolk or anywhere else for 3 or 4 hours every night. I'll never see my wife and boys. And Myra has to work, so it's not fair to her. We need every penny to survive. Yeah, but you should have gone to technical school for auto repair like I told you. Dad, I love cars. I like driving them, but I'm not very good at fixing them. So hauling lumber on a forklift is your goddamn dream job? My temper was always like a goddamn yo-yo when my dad got involved. It's a good job for now. I have plans. Your plans have been awesome lately, Jimmy. Jimmy, Mom interrupted, it's never too late to change things. And if you have to take time off work to get help, it's worth it. Don't you and Myra have any money left over from Grandpa? I shook my head and wondered. Mom's dad, Grandpa Connell, had lived a pretty hard life. He came when he was 8 years old in the 1950s. Ireland was in deep shit then. Ireland was in economic crisis, and all the families who could afford to leave the country did so. Many of them settled in Hempstead, as did most of the other Meeks who immigrated at the time. By the late 50s, the Irish in town were about 40% Irish. He was doing the right thing, saving every dime he could earn. He was an old miser and always complained about everyone wasting money. His house was cold in the winter and warm in the summer, and he was proud of his damn tomato garden. He was a master of overbidding and could talk down any fishmonger on the docks without even trying. He had an innate knowledge of how people worked and could be a liaison for so many unlike-minded people who would never have met in ordinary life that he was jokingly referred to as the Irish Godfather. He passed away 4 years ago at the age of 68 from cancer. He refused to quit smoking and lived with the pain until he could no longer walk or move. When he was gone, he weighed no more than 130 pounds. But Grandpa Connell surprised almost everyone by dying with a small fortune accumulated in his name in the form of real estate and odd investments. When it was all over and the lawyers got their share, Grandma Rose divided a big chunk of his money among the children and grandchildren. There were 8 of us in all, and each got a little over $50,000. John had just been born, and Myra was due to give birth to Joel the following week, and we knew we needed a place different from the apartment we barely existed in. So we started looking for a place not too far from my or her parents, and settled here, in not the best neighborhood in Wanta. We ended up getting a house from a bank that wasn't foreclosed on, and it was just a dump. We had to give them about $20,000 up front, but the housing crisis was in full swing, and the bank was desperate to make a deal. Our mortgage and taxes were about $1,300 a month, but we had a house. As for the rest, I was looking out the window at my Charger in the driveway. Sparkling and polished to a fluorescent red, every metal and rubber surface lovingly washed and waxed. I'd always dreamed of owning one when I saw them rushing down Meadowbrook Parkway, and the cars seemed to chew into the road like they were eating asphalt. So I blew all the money I had left, spent most of it on a brand new, at the time, 2010 Dodge Charger, and drove away in it. I know Grandpa Connell wouldn't have approved of my decision, and neither did Myra when I drove it into the driveway. We fought over the damn car for over a month, but I was able to convince her that it was a good choice since my Honda Civic that I had at the time was beyond repair, and I didn't have to make a car payment since we owned it on title. The last 3,000 or so that was left in the savings account had slowly disappeared over the years. It was spent on diapers, formula, new tires for her Sedona, boots, shoes, and just about every other emergency that a young couple faces every month. No, Mom, we're practically living from paycheck to paycheck right now. My father shifted to a sitting position and then stood up with awkward slowness. Well, now that you're not going to buy any more damn beer, you'll have a little extra money in the house. Shane, I said enough. Mom put her arm around me and patted me on the back. You need to take care of yourself, Jimmy. Myra and the boys need you. We love you, son. Thanks, Mom. Listen. Dad leaned over to me, putting his hand on my shoulder. You're doing the right thing. Think about it, damn it, okay? Don't be like my pig of a brother. He squeezed my hand tightly to prove his point, then stepped back with a follow-up clap. You're doing the right thing by your wife and kids. They're the best part of you, Jimmy. I watched them walk out the front door until I was alone again with my thoughts and the quiet, empty house. Every time I went into the kitchen, I was overcome with shame and went back out without even eating dinner because I felt dirty in there. By 8 o'clock in the evening, I was completely exhausted. I was tired to the point of exhaustion. The soles of my feet and calves were aching. I turned the TV on twice and turned it off again a few minutes later. What's the matter, Jimmy? I asked myself, leaning back on the back of the couch and putting my feet on the opposite end. What was going through my head? Why was I so afraid? I'm not one to be afraid, but here I was alone in my house and I felt my stomach clench and my throat itch. I think that's what scared me. That itch. That pervasive itch that tickled the tip of my tongue. It was prickly, cotton-like, rough and thick to the touch. And I knew it well because I'd been squeezing that itch every day for a long time. Goddamn shit! I got up off the couch and opened the garage door, glancing at the pantry wall to make sure Tim had put away the crates of Bud Light. He had put away. Good, I said nonchalantly. Good thing he's gone. I turned off the lights in the garage and went back into the TV room. Next to the hall closet was a small cabinet where we usually kept a couple bottles of wine and maybe something stronger. I wonder if Tim took those too. I wasn't going to take anything. I was just curious. So when I opened the cabinet door and saw nothing but a half-pack of blue Solo cups, I closed it back with a shiver in my voice. Good idea, Tim. Get that shit out of here. By 10:30, I was in deep shit. I took a shower, as hot as the water heater could heat, and then I needed to cool off. I felt like I was dying of a fever. So I splashed cold water on my skin. I just couldn't get comfortable. My body was having a very hard time regulating itself. More annoyed than angry, I turned off the water, wiped myself dry, and headed into the bedroom, where I collapsed on the bed and stared up at the ceiling. Reaching out, I picked up Myra's pillow, brought it up to my face, and inhaled the faint scent of her hair. Damn it, Myra. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, kids. I pressed her pillow tighter against my face, the fluffy softness covering my nose and mouth, and my heart beat fast and uneven. Her free hand reached down to check on baby Jimmy, briefly squeezing my balls and bringing them to rest. I frowned. Great. Didn't even twitch. Feeling sick from the whole damn day, I rolled over onto my back and closed my eyes, allowing myself to finally fall asleep. Waking up the next day, I had no idea what time it was. Sunlight was streaming in through the window, and I had to rummage through my nightstand to find my alarm clock. 11:53. Damn it, I'd slept all day. I got up expecting to feel rested after a long night in bed, but instead it was just the opposite. I was tired as hell. I peed and then went looking for something to eat, marveling at the variety of food I could find in the fridge. Wow, thanks, Mom, I said, pulling out a package of bacon. How long has it been since you've had bacon in the house, Jimmy? Eventually, The smell of cooking meat filled the room as my bread finished baking in the toaster. A little mayo, tomato, and lettuce, and I had a great BLT as a first course on new, at least for us, plates. Holy crap, it was delicious. I cleaned everything up and then took some time to clean the rest of the house. No reason for Myra to come home to a freaking mess. Okay, laundry isn't my strong suit. I folded clothes for both boys, as well as Myra's and my own, and it looked nothing like it did when she did it. But it was clean, folded in half and stacked in drawers, so I know that must mean something. Then I went outside and fiddled with the lawnmower until it came to life. I mowed the grass, weeds, and leaves from front to back. Anything that was on the ground, I chewed up and mowed under the root. If the leaf pile was too high, I raced the mower back and forth over it until there wasn't a single whole leaf left, just brown-orange confetti that I hoped would scatter overnight. Around 3, I jumped in my car and drove to the local store to get myself a soda. The Arab-looking guy behind the counter barely looked up when I walked in, his eyes fixed on the football game on the tiny 9-inch TV next to the cash register. I filled a glass with ice and a Pepsi and was about to go make a call when I stopped in front of the display case with the chickens. Gleaming silver, bold, clear lettering, and I realized it was filled with Rocky Mountain amber liquid in 12 different jars. Sure, it might be barely below room temperature now, but an hour in the fridge and it would be ready to drink. I grabbed one of the 12 packs and looked at the back of my palm as if it had personally betrayed me. Jimmy, what the hell are you doing? Are you serious? What about Myra and the boys? Well, hell, I had a rough weekend, and I deserve a beer or two. You had a shitty weekend because you drank too much goddamn beer. Hey, I'm out here sweating my ass off after working outside. It's just beer. I could feel droplets of moisture slowly dripping down my forehead. If you're hot and thirsty, you have a damn soda. Drink up, you stupid drunk asshole. I'm not a goddamn drunk asshole. Are you? Prove you're a goddamn drunk. Go away. My hand remains over the cardboard pen. Hey, Jimmy, get out! Damn! Get out! Okay, I exclaimed, jerked my hand away as if burned, and whirled toward the counter. It was obvious by the looks on the faces of several people in the store that I had made my statement not only out loud, but with some volume. Sorry, I muttered, handing the clerk 2 crumpled bills from my wallet. Rough day. The guy nodded, handing me my change and probably hoping I'd just walk out of his damn store and shut the hell up. Oh well. I gave him what I assumed he wanted and climbed back into my baby car to drive home. Once home, I went outside to do some more jumping rope, which got to 215 before slowing down and going over my feet. After that, I did some push-ups, just to keep my mind sharp and my body toned. Damn, I was craving a beer. I slumped to the ground, resting my face in the dying dry grass, spreading my toes and sticking my elbows out. I never realized how much I wanted beer until I physically tried not to drink it. It was harder than anything I'd ever had to do before, and I felt so awful I couldn't go on. I forced myself to my feet and staggered into the house where I sat in a chair and stared at the front door, my mind blank and my thoughts incomplete. It went on like this until I heard the sound of car doors slamming and the screams of my sons. My sons. I jumped up from my chair at the exact moment the door swung open and John and Joel flew into the house. Daddy! Daddy! We missed you! Every word they said felt like it pierced my heart, and suddenly everything fell into place. This was the reason I had to quit drinking. It was the reason I couldn't take my hands off the beer. 2 young guys I loved dearly were frantically hugging me and laughing gleefully at their long-awaited reunion. The yard looks good. I looked up. My eyes were irritated by something. Maybe dust and cat hair, who knows? But I brushed away the tears and saw Myra standing there with a bag in her hands looking kind of lost. My wife looked like something was about to happen. Like I was a stranger to be feared? My Myra, who was uncomfortable being at home and with me. Not a chance. I stood up, picked my sons up in my arms, and carried the 3 of us to the love of my life, where I laid the boys on the ground, and we all fell into each other's arms and cried our eyes out. Oh, babies! I missed you guys. I missed you and Jay so much. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't go, babies. Jimmy, James, we've all missed you too. I love you. We love you, Daddy. We love you, Mommy. We stood in the doorway with our arms around each other, happy to be together again, to have the wounds in our hearts and families healed and mended after a horrible weekend spent apart. When she looked up at me with tear-drenched cheeks, I wanted to punch the bastard who made her cry, and I realized I'd have to punch myself. She shook, hugging me until we were all tired, and our tears turned to laughter and giggles, and our emotions raged through us like the wind in a field. Finally, we were exhausted, and I felt a little more awake. Hey kids, Jace, let me drop off your stuff and I want to hear all about your weekend at Stephanie's. Don't leave anything out. I want to hear everything, okay? I will, Daddy. I'm going to watch TV until we talk. I'll go watch it with John Boy, Daddy. When the two of them turned on the TV, I cast a penetrating look at Myra and tilted toward the top of her head. I wanted to tell you that I love you, Myra Skelly. I leaned in a little more and kissed her forehead. She looked up at me and asked pitifully, James, have you been drinking anything today? You've been acting strange. Very affectionate, and I love you for it, but just out of sorts. I looked at the boys. They were engrossed in their show. I took Myra's hand, and we walked to her car where I could talk without disturbing our sons. No, Myra. The last time I drank anything was right after the boys and I left Friday night. Really? She grabbed a bag of dirty clothes, and I grabbed the rest of the bags and turned to go back into the house. Yeah, I wasn't very well behaved when you left, Myra. I don't want to go into details, but it wasn't my proudest moment. The next day, Mom and Dad, Tim, Scott, Brian, and Jerry came over and helped me get my life back on track. Not a drop of alcohol in the house, not a case of beer, not a mug of liquor in the garage. Wow. I'm impressed, James. Really impressed. She snuggled up to me and hugged my sides as we re-entered the house. I noticed that the cabinets don't quite fit together now, but she held up a hand to interrupt my comments. They look great, and I have to say they hang better than the old ones. Thank you. It's not just my credit. There really isn't much of it. I've had a lot of good help. I'm glad, James. You need this, and I don't know how to help you. I took her hand in mine. It's not for you to help me. This is something I have to do for myself, and for you, and for the boys. I know that, and damn it, I'll do what I can. The rest of the night was the complete opposite of how my life had been going for the past 2 days. John and Joel told me about everything they did with Grandma Stephanie, where they went, what they ate, and how much fun they had, even though they missed me. We played Go Fish at the table and ate fresh Entenmann's cookies that Myra had found in the cupboards. I should have thanked her for not saying anything about replacing the dishes, but I could see she was anxious. The evening passed in bathing and fiddling until it was announced that it was bedtime and John had to go back to daycare in the morning. For the entire next week, I fought back like a linebacker, hitting hard and falling through the ground. Every morning I woke up feeling happy for myself and my life. My boys were my focus, my wife was my inspiration, and taking care of my family was my goal. On Wednesday, Tim called me over to play pool, but I waved him off, saying I would spend the day with Myra and the boys. He laughed and called me a goddamn wuss, but I had to give him credit because he showed up at the house a little after 7:30 p.m. that night and brought a half-dozen little pumpkins for John and Joel to carve. He stayed there until the boys went to bed, and even Myra thanked him for coming. She hugged him and kissed him on the cheek for his efforts. I caught him peering at her ass as she walked down the hallway to the bed, for which he received a sharp slap on the arm. Careful, Timmy. That's mine. Relax, Jimmy. I'm just studying the menu and I'm not going to order anything. It's not my restaurant. He chuckled. I mimicked his laughter, finishing by saying, "Ha ha ha, Dick. Just watch your shit." We walked outside where he lit a cigarette and offered it to me. We smoked together, looking up at the night sky and the cool October breeze blowing across the yard. He fumbled in his jacket pocket and pulled out a small bottle of Jack Daniels. Dude, do you mind? I smiled at him, feeling confident. Poor compadre. He grinned and took a sip, screwing on the cap. What's up, man? Honestly? Pretty good. Myra and I are getting along better every day. The boys are doing great, and I'm focused and alert like I haven't been in a long time. Glad to hear that, Jimmy. You were in deep shit when we came out. I don't think of Jimmy Skelly any differently than I think of a cinder block or brick wall. Solid, dependable, indestructible. That's you, man. I nodded. It is, buddy. Don't worry about it. Everyone stumbles and falls. Winners get up and losers are left lying on the ground bitching about it. He finished his cigarette butt and tossed it under his heel. I'm passing out, Jimmy. That was great. Thanks for letting me stretch out your family time. Hey, that's what buddies are for. He glanced at his watch and smiled. I'm getting out of here. I need to meet someone. I got a job as a driver. I raised an eyebrow. You? First of all, the job. That's ridiculous. Second, driving. Dude, you can't drive for shit. Maybe, but I get $300 in cash, and all I have to do is drive a duffel bag to Coram and drive another one back to Roosevelt Field. What the hell? Timmy, are you on drugs or some shit? He laughed. I have no idea. I don't look in bags. My buddy needed a ride with someone one night, so I agreed. When we got to Roosevelt Field, some hustling freak in a Camaro tore my buddy's ass up for being an idiot and threw me the money. Since then, I've been moonlighting once a week or so hauling bags. Tim, you're an asshole. Don't get caught. No, I'm fine. He held out his hand and we shook it, patting each other on the back in a manly way. Then he stepped off the porch and waved goodbye. Jerry, Grace, and their daughter Brittany came to visit me for the weekend. Myra and Grace had a great time socializing with each other, and John and Joel played with the Xaver baby girl. There was a definite purpose to my plan, as Jerry and I spent almost all of our time working on the damned crappy water heater. It had two elements in it, and we managed to get one to work fully and the other to work reasonably well. We set the temperature at 140 and tested it all day, and sure enough, the house had hot water again. Myra sang me dithyrambs, and Jerry praised me for my ability to hand me a 10 mm socket and hold the bulb just a little higher. We laughed, I grilled hot dogs, and the wives made salad for everyone. It was a little weird not to have a beer, and I know I was a little distracted after dinner, but I made it through the day without a breakdown, and we called it a success. My work remained the same, but I assumed Doug had noticed that I had become less sloppy and more collected, since as time went on he didn't scold me for anything. The weather was getting colder, and orders were dwindling as the construction season was winding down, and most of the contractors had switched to inside work. In the second week of November, I had my first beer. It was a cold Tuesday, the temperature barely reached 40, and it was raining. Not torrential, but steady, and you got soaked no matter what you did. We had the sheetrock delivered, and the trailer driver had to huddle with his back against the roof in the yard to keep the load from getting wet after the tarp was removed. We already had 24 boards left, and there was no way Doug wanted to release the load and return it tomorrow, so I had to deliver it to the building. This meant that every time I wanted to take a load off the truck, I had to wait for the driver to roll back the tarp so I could lift it with my pitchfork. So the job took 3 times as long as usual. So the rain poured down on me 3 times longer than usual. Then it was necessary to get the stone quickly into the building before the top slabs became saturated with moisture. And all of this had to be done surrounded by trucks of contractors and homeowners who were constantly moving in and out of the yard gates to load up. As the unloading continued, I became angrier and less tolerant. My composure wavered, and I began to get chills from sitting in one place for so long waiting for transportation. It took over 2 hours to unload and haul out the stone, and I had no time for the rest of the work. When the last load of lumber was secured the next day and the Yale forklift parked, we had been idling for almost an hour, and it was already 5 o'clock. I was miserable and grabbed a dry shirt from the salesman's office to put on since I felt like a sponge. Freddie Turlips, One of the guys behind the counter was nearby, and he suggested we all go to Hooters and blow off some steam since things were so damn bad today. I was about to wave it off, telling Freddie that business was tight, and I didn't have money for beer, wings, and cleavage when he shrugged and offered to pay the bill. I gotta tell you, Jimmy, he said with a smirk, you're busting your ass out here, and today I think everyone noticed how much effort it took for you not to yell, "the hell with it," and go inside to warm up. A few of the other vendors agreed, and anyone still here was asked to leave. I called Myra, but frustratingly answered the answering machine. Honey, we've had a shitty day, so we're going to go rest for an hour or two. I'll be home before 8. Love you, kids. We headed to the local Hooters, where we managed to grab a corner table with minimal wait. There was a game on the nearby flat screens, and we asked the waitress, Candy, as if that was her real name, to bring a couple servings of wings and 2 pitchers of beer. As we relaxed and I felt my pants drying awkwardly on my legs, I absent-mindedly grabbed a mug from the center of the table and filled it from the nearest pitcher. What are you doing, Jimmy? Just drinking a beer. Are you sure that's a good idea? Sure, I've had a really shitty day. What about the last month? You've been looking out for yourself this whole time. I know, and that's why I know this beer won't be a problem. It'll show that I can control myself, and it won't be a problem. One beer? Just one. You can have one, Jimmy. Just one. It's all right. I took a sip, parted my lips, letting the cold amber liquid slide over them. A pleasant taste, a muted aroma. I could taste the hops, grainy on my tongue. The remaining lace of foam tickled my whiskers as I swallowed a mouthful. Such a clean flavor. In a word, delicious. My mouth stretched into a wide grin, the remnants of the warming beer teasing the roof of my mouth and the hollows of my cheeks. I took another slow sip, feeling my throat bubbling as the soda passed through my system and out with a slight belch of hops and grain-laden air. I kept my word, and while I may have eaten too many chicken wings, I only drank one beer. So I said goodbye to my work buddies, climbed into my Charger, and drove home to my wife and kids. Hey, it's Dad! I exclaimed, swinging open the front door and standing on the doorstep with my arms spread out. Hey, Dad! John rushed towards me, letting me catch him as he squeezed my neck in a fierce hug. We heard you on the answering machine. Really? I didn't hear you guys. Joel grabbed my right leg, settled on my foot, and pressed himself firmly against my calf and thigh. I rocked my youngest son forward and upward as I entered the house, and his shrill laughter was almost deafening. Where's Mommy? She's in the potty. Ooh, that sounds confidential and important. From behind the closed bathroom door, Myra exclaimed good-naturedly, It is, so stop talking about my potty, boys. We all walked over to the bathroom door and took turns knocking on it, asking, Are you in there? Whether she answered or not, we kept doing it until we burst into laughter, and finally, Myra opened the door, looking wildly around and grinning like a panther. The boys screamed in feigned terror and ran away, and I rushed the other way, Myra trying to grab me by my shirt. I ended up tangled in the couch when John stopped in front of me, and my wife was finally able to grab me and slow me down. Yes! Yes! She shouted with a smirk, putting her hands on my shoulders and pushing me backwards. I'm in the bathroom. I let her plop me down on the couch where she landed in my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck. We missed you, James Skelly. I leaned down to kiss her and felt her fight a smirk as we did so. As we pulled away from each other, and the boys tried to pull me away, I noticed a change in her eyes as she cast a hazy look at me. Hey, honey, did you happen to have a beer tonight? John and Joel took my hands and pulled me to the floor to play matchbox cars with them. Yeah, kids, but only one. Do you think that was a good idea? Sure, just the one, no sweat and no problems. I smiled victoriously and tried to reassure her with a look. Okay, since you say so. Although she expressed her understanding, something in her facial expression and demeanor let me know she wasn't completely sure. For myself, I was sure. For a whole month I hadn't tried anything, and when the temptation came, I only tried one thing. A piece of cake. On Friday, I was rushing home after work so Myra could get to her job on time when I remembered that I didn't have any mac and cheese mix in the house, and I had promised the guys I'd make my special version. So I ran into the local convenience store and bought 2 boxes of Kraft macaroni, quickly walking up to the counter. While I waited for the elderly lady in front of me to make her final lottery ticket selection, I looked around and noticed that the store was having a Budweiser sale. A 6-pack for $3.25. Hell of a bargain, I pondered aloud. I'd just gotten my paycheck and I had a pocket full of cash. I'm not going to drink them cold, but it wouldn't hurt to have a pack on me in case I have another rough day. I took the pack and paid for it with my cheap blue boxes, nodding to myself that it wasn't a problem. It wasn't at all. Back home, I kissed Myra goodbye and she hurried off to work, promising that I would be up and ready by the time she returned. The boys were perplexed as to what I meant, and I laughed as they talked about being up and ready with me all night, not realizing the double meaning of my words. I made dinner, adding a handful of diced tomatoes to the macaroni and cheese, a 1/4 pound of ground beef, and sprinkling some breadcrumbs on top to bind everything together. We happily ate our dinner, and I had to keep them from finishing it, as we wanted to leave some for Myra to eat when she got home. After dinner, the boys wanted to watch a movie, so I went to the closet and pulled out Monsters, Inc. and let them relax on the couch while Mike and Sally relived their misadventures at the factory. I leaned back in my chair, relaxed with my sons, and decided I felt good enough to have a beer. I opened the can, and it made that welcoming hissing sound that lets you know, "Hey, I'm here." I drank it slowly, sipping and taking big pauses between sips. When the movie was over, I made the boys change into their pajamas and let them rest in their room for half an hour, which gave me a chance to sit down at the table with this week's bills and drink a second mug of beer. Just 2 jimmies. Don't need any more? Is that a problem? No, I don't think so. No problem at all. It's just a second beer. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's fine. By 9:30, I tucked my sons under the covers, turned off the lights, and put the remaining 4 beers in the back of the fridge behind the bread and salad on the bottom shelf. Just got it out of the way. No need to take up the top shelf. Once again, everything was in order. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, rinsed my mouth, threw back the blankets in the bedroom, and waited for Myra to come home. I didn't have to wait long before I heard her pull up to the house and enter. "Hi, honey," she exclaimed in an exhausted voice. "Hi, little ones. How was your night?" "Long, very long." She kicked off her shoes and sat down at the kitchen table. "Ooh, macaroni and cheese from Jimmy's. Someone loves me." I moved the container closer to her and put down my fork. "Eat up, kids. Just relax." The next day, I woke up in a great mood and got up before everyone else. I peed and then headed to the kitchen to see what I would like for breakfast. Digging around in there, I remembered the Budweiser, pulled out a can, opened it, and drank it. It tasted pretty damn good. I took another sip and drank even deeper until the last drop flowed down my throat with a golden warming glow. I crumpled the can in my hand and tossed it into the trash can where it fell with a metallic clang. "Good morning, honey," Myra greeted me, dressed in a sleep shirt, her hair ruffled on her pillow. She looked at the trash and frowned. "James, did you just finish your beer?" I smiled. "Yeah, kids, just one." "Where did the beer come from? I thought we got rid of it." "Yeah, I bought a 6-pack of bottles yesterday. It was on sale." She looked nervous. "James, do you think it's a good idea to have beer in the house?" "Sure. Then again, I've only had 1 bottle. It's not a problem. Really, you don't have to make it into something bigger than it is." She nodded her head, but I could see she wasn't convinced. "Okay, James, but if I think it's becoming a problem, you're not going to stop me from getting rid of it, are you?" "Not a problem, Myra. You won't have to worry because it won't be a problem. A scout is a great honor." The days went on one after another, all through November. Each day was a little shorter and colder than the previous one. John and Joel were enjoying the coming winter, and Myra was cooking Thanksgiving dinner with her mom and my parents. I didn't even notice that I was already drinking a beer or two a day. It seemed normal, no big deal. And when I went to 3 and then 4, it didn't bother me one bit. I could see Myra getting more and more anxious and trying to ask me to stop, but each time I reassured her that it wasn't like before and not to worry, I had it under control. When I went to play pool with Timmy the week before Thanksgiving, it seemed natural to me that we would play an elimination game, which we had done before. So when I beat him 3 games to 2, I felt no pain. I realized I probably shouldn't have had that last glass of whiskey and switched to soda to sober up a bit. Since I didn't want to risk getting behind the wheel drunk, we didn't leave the pool hall until 11, which meant that after driving Tim home, I didn't get back to my place until almost 12. It was slow and insidious, but it crept up on me even when I was looking for it. As Thanksgiving got even closer, it was only 2 days away, Myra started getting almost constantly irritated with me, and everything I did was already wrong. Give me a damn break. I was doing the best I could. Plus, I was tired all the time. I quit jumping rope since I couldn't do 30 jumps without getting out of breath and tripping over the damn cord. And Doug was being a hard ass for no reason at all. Honestly, everything was going to hell, and I had no idea why everyone was taking their shit out on me. "James, I need to talk to you," was how it started after I put John and Joel to bed. "Damn it, Myra. What now? It's late, and I have to work in the damn morning. Tomorrow is the last day before vacation, and Doug is being a total asshole to me." "James, your drinking is getting out of control again." I frowned. "Back to that shit again? Come on, kids. I told you I can handle it. It's not a problem, so don't make a big deal out of it." "James, you seem to drink all the time, and you promised me you wouldn't do it." She clenched her hands into fists, clinging to the napkin like a lifeline. "I want you to stop." "Okay." I threw my hands up in the air. "I'll stop. Are you satisfied?" "No, I'm serious." "Me neither." "Why the hell do you want me to fill out a form?" "James, please. It's vacation time." "I know it's vacation time. Like I don't know? Didn't I go to the store today and get cranberry sauce and gravy and a bunch of other shit you asked for?" I was upset, and it bothered me that I was upset. "What the hell are you upset about, James? Calm the hell down." "James, please calm down." "Wow, that's great." She said the same thing I was thinking. I'm calm. I'm calm, Myra. You're making me upset. Here's the deal. I won't drink, and you won't nag me, okay?" Tears streamed down her face as she turned away, whispering, "I can't." "You can't. You can't what? Not nag me? That's what you can't do?" She didn't say anything, went into the bedroom and closed the door. I sat in the kitchen, frowning and feeling like shit. "Good for you, dickface." I looked at my fingernails, absent-mindedly chewing on my pinky finger. "You like making your wife cry? Tough guy, asshole, macho douchebag, making a woman cry. You make me sick, James. Sick, 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 sick." Annoyed, I walked over to the couch and lay down on it, falling asleep to the quiet sounds coming from the house. I woke up the next morning to Myra shaking my shoulder and my brain not understanding why I was looking at the TV and wondering how come I was on the couch. "James, James, wake up. You overslept." "Huh?" I rolled off the couch to the sound of 100 screaming muscles, my back cracking wildly as I straightened up and put it back in place. "What the hell?" Staggering, I headed toward the TV until I could read the clock. 6:38. "Goddamn shit," I growled. "I'm going to be late." I blew past Myra and ran into the bedroom, tossing my boxers into the laundry basket and dressing quickly. I pulled my shoes on one at a time, lacing them up quickly, and then slipped into my sweatshirt. I rushed down the hall to the bathroom. I could hear Myra in the kitchen stuffing something and the refrigerator door slamming. "It's nothing complicated, Myra. I have to go." I splashed toothpaste straight into my mouth and began brushing my face fiercely with a dry toothbrush. "Toast, James. That's right, buttered toast. Can you drink coffee at work? I spit in the sink and shouted back, when the roach coach comes over, I'll do it. I rinsed my mouth and then splashed water on my face, rubbing it in. My hair looked like I'd slept on the damn couch. Shit. I heated the water and dunked my head under the faucet, rubbing it until it was wet. Then I quickly towel dried my hair and slicked it back with half a dozen sharp strokes of the hairbrush. Good enough. I ran into the kitchen just in time to put on my jacket, take 2 slices of buttered toast from Myra's hands, and bestow a scalding kiss on my wife. I'm an asshole, kids. Sorry about last night. She shook her head and waved me toward the door. Don't worry about it. Just watch yourself today. Run. It's 6:47. Drive carefully. I love you. I love you too. I ran out to my baby girl, barely swallowing the first piece of toast. I started her up, pulled out of the driveway and started the engine, tires roaring as I raced away from the house to my job. Come on, baby, I said to my Charger as we pulled onto the main road, hit the gas pedal, and made the 8-cylinder engine roar in response. The wide tires bit into the asphalt, holding the 5,000+ pound car in place as we raced toward Huntington and Florence. The minutes on the dashboard ticked by one after another until it was 7 o'clock, and I cursed every red light and slow-moving freak I was stuck behind. Finally, I saw the building painted green, jerked the steering wheel sharply, and pulled into the parking lot at 7:08, stopping with a squeal of brakes. I jumped out of the car and ran to the front door, horrified to see that both drivers were already in the yard and starting their empty trucks. Doug, I'm sorry I'm late. I overslept. I offered, running up to the counter and quickly signing in. Damn me, Jimmy, he replied, holding a clipboard in one hand and a rolled-up plan in the other. You're goddamn late. You look like shit, and you tell me you overslept. Load the damn trucks and get them out the door, then get your ass to my office. Got it? Yeah, Doug. Got it. Shit. I screwed up. Come on, Doug. Take me for another ride for no damn reason. I'm out here every day, in the cold, rain, heat, whatever, doing my job. No goddamn respect for what I do or how hard I work. I loaded both trucks in 10 minutes, and they were out the gate at 7:25. Not a great result. I turned off the Yale and went back to the house where Doug made me go into his office and shut the door. He spent the next 15 minutes tearing my ass up one side and down the other. He picked on my workability, sloppy appearance, attendance, attitude, even guessed that I occasionally had a beer or two. Listen to me, Jimmy, and listen good. By this point, he'd slowed down, stopped ranting and raving. I'm giving you until the end of the year to get your ass in order, or you're out of here. Do you understand me? If you're still in the hell on December 31st, you're out. Understand? I nodded, miserable. Yeah, Doug, I got it. He shook his head. At halftime, I want you to go to 7, 11, buy a discarded razor, come back here and shave. And I want you to wear a cap today. You look like some serious shit. Jesus, Jimmy, I'm not your mom. I shouldn't be telling you how to groom yourself. You're supposed to represent Florence Building Supply, not I don't give a shit art use. I'm sorry, Doug. I'll take care of it. Take care of it. Now get out of here and do your job. I walked out, noticing most of the employees and customers looking away. Damn, now everyone could hear him bugging me. Thanks, Doug. You're an asshole. Next time, just stick a knife in my damn neck. Starting up the Yale, I drove out into the yard and busied myself with the work that had accumulated, grumbling often and loudly when no one was around. By the time the cockroach trainer showed up, I was dragging, no energy left, fatigue finally creeping up and taking its toll. Hey, Scott, I greeted the driver, filling a large styrofoam cup with coffee from his urn and adding some sugar to it. Got a blanket? No, sorry, Jimmy. I handed him $3 and climbed tiredly back onto my forklift. No covers meant I'd have to hold my coffee while I worked, which meant I was working slower than I liked. And sure enough, at this point, Doug was standing at the big window overlooking the yard, watching me single-handedly drive the forklift in low gear down the rutted sidewalk, sipping coffee. He only shook his head and went back into his office. Damn me, I growled as I took the last sip and then crushed the half cup in my gloved hand and tossed it into the junk drawer I kept behind the seat. Not one damn thing all day. At 11:30, I was feeling nervous, miserable, angry, frustrated, and just plain depressed. My hands were itchy, and my head felt like a lot of needles were ringing in my head. I ran to lunch, popped into 7-Eleven, and bought a 3-pack of cheap Bic razors and a can of overpriced shaving cream. Then I made my way to the back of the store, to the refrigerator, and pulled out a 12-pack of Coors. Damn, I deserve this, I thought, as I paid for my purchases. This damn thing isn't giving me a break today. I drank one in the parking lot and was already feeling much better when I was done. Parking the Charger, I walked back to the yard where I took a second drink. The anger faded as the heady beverage cooled me down. Taking the rest of my purchases, I went to the bathroom where I washed my face and shaved as thoroughly as possible with cheap blades. My face was as smooth as it could ever be. To hell with it. I gathered my supplies and left the bathroom heading for the exit, slowing down outside Doug's office so he could see me. He looked up when I stopped at his door, and my eyes met his. Better. I didn't say anything back. Everything was boiling inside as I walked to my car and threw my bag into the passenger seat. Seeing the bottles of Coors lying on the floor, I pulled out a third and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Damn, I need this today, I muttered, walking back into the yard and getting to work. The day didn't get any better, but it didn't get any worse either. I managed to get a beer while I waddled around the back of the yard near the roofing shingles. It felt good, like I was personally getting something from Doug for being a ruthless asshole to me today. At 4, Doug gathered everyone at the front door, where he threw a grand ceremony to hand out today's paychecks, like we were getting a bonus instead of the usual 2 days' pay. Like he was going to open the place up on Black Friday to hand out checks. I suppressed the urge to tell him to back off, and instead thanked him for the check, putting it in my coat pocket. He looked at me strangely, narrowing his eyes and sniffing the air as if he smelled something. Damn, this freak can smell beer. It's okay, I just won't exhale. Huh? A hell of a lot smarter than you, asshole. Once at a safe distance, I exhaled and congratulated myself on being so damn smart. I went to the bathroom and washed my face so I could drive home, but I didn't like the crease forming between my eyebrows and the muscles in my neck tensing. I walked out of work and, as usual, no one noticed me. It was like I was invisible as hell. I opened my nursery door, grabbed a box of Coors from the floor of the front seat, and set it on the floor of the back seat, but not before grabbing another one to drink before the ride home. I had to slide the big box behind the seat to make room, and its contents rumbled as it shifted. It was filled with all sorts of stuff I'd salvaged while driving the forklift here. Stuff the contractors threw in the dumpster, stuff I found in the yard. It was mostly rebar, 2-inch ribbed metal posts used in concrete foundations and forms. Each one weighed 3 pounds or so, and I'd accumulated about 20 of them over time. There were also a couple of rusty claw hammers, a plumber's wrench, a couple of measuring tapes that for one reason or another didn't work, a 5-pound canvas bag full of galvanized roofing nails, at least 30 bent carriage bolts, and a set of 7 cheap wrought iron metric wrenches that had the end of the box broken off. All the good stuff I found was in my garage. It was leftover stuff I'd collected, but hadn't yet had time to fix, clean, or throw away. My Charger started, the engine sounding as angry as I was, and I slowly drove home. The ride didn't calm me down one bit. On the contrary, I only picked up the pace, going over in my mind every little thing, every insult I had to endure at work today. I was getting angrier and angrier, my insides churning as I drove south. When I finally pulled into the driveway, I was ready to bite my nails. Thank God I had 4 days off, or I would have really lost my temper at work. Right now, all I wanted to do was walk into the house, kick off my shoes, and relax. Hey, sweetie, how was your day? Myra was in the kitchen, condiments, spice jars, pots, and pans lying in disarray on the counters and stove. It's been a hell of a day, Myra. Okay? Damn, I'm so sorry you had a bad day, James. Was Doug pissed off that you got in late? Pissed off? Haha, that doesn't even describe what a miserable bastard he was to me. It's shit, I'll tell you that. Shit. I put the remaining box in the fridge, pushing aside a few packed bowls to make room. I pulled out one beer, popped the cork, tipped it back, and took a sip. Something has to change, kids. I can't put up with his shitty attitude anymore. Myra stared at me with her mouth open, half raising her hand to look at me. What? I asked, immediately getting angry with her. What the hell? What happened? I looked around. Where are John and Joel? They're in the backyard playing with the Miller kids. She shook her head. What the hell are you doing? What? I picked up my beer. This? Nothing. I've had a shitty day. I already told you that. James, that's enough. Give me a beer. She held out her hand to me. Are you crazy? I'm not giving you my beer. I had the worst day today, and I'm telling you, it's your damn fault. My fault? She almost shouted back. How is it my fault? You had a fight with me last night and I slept on the couch, which means I didn't set my alarm clock. And that means I was late for work today. And it means Doug rode my goddamn ass all day because of it. At that moment, my voice rose, the snaky tendrils of anger stirring in my chest. So if you don't like me trying to relax in my damn house with a damn beer, you should think about what you did to me yesterday and try not to do it today. Don't take it out on me, James Skelly. You're more than a significant part of this problem, and you need to take responsibility. Don't patronize me, Myra. James, give me that damn beer. You've had enough. I held it over my head like a child, not giving her the opportunity to take it away. Seeing that I wasn't going to let her take it, she frowned and opened the refrigerator door, pulling the rest of my case off the shelf by the edge of the cardboard box. Hey! I shouted. Put that back! She backed away, heading for the sink, and I went forward. James, no more drinking, no more drinking. I lunged after her, reaching for her back, and we both pulled at the box, the cardboard ripping and beer cans flying all over the kitchen. A scream was heard from the doorway, and when I turned around, I saw my two sons standing there in distress, followed by the two boys from the Miller house next door, who were in shock. Daddy! Mommy! My children screamed, walking into the kitchen horrified at what they saw. John! Joel! Get out of here! I ordered, hoping they would move far enough away so I could calm Myra down and get my beer. It's okay, boys. It's okay. Myra thrashed in my arms, trying to break free, but I wasn't about to let her go. Not after she dropped my beer. We needed to talk about this, and we needed to do it now. With a final, terrified expression on their faces, the four boys ran out of the kitchen and into the backyard, slamming the door behind them. See what you've done. I growled at her, the volume rising, a snake crawling through my lungs, fire blazing in my throat. I hope you're happy. Let me go, James. Let me go. Get out of here. I want you to leave. Just go away. I can't take this anymore. She was on the verge of breaking, wriggling and twisting in my grip. As we struggled, I set my foot on one of the fallen cans, and the seal broke, allowing the foaming beer to spill across the floor. Muddy puddles gathered on the linoleum. Calm down, Myra! I squeezed her tighter as she tried to break free, my fingers encircling her wrists, the skin on them almost turning white under my grip. She moaned and wriggled but refused to relax, which only irritated me more. Myra, if you don't bloody calm down, I'm going to lose my temper. Ah! She screamed, I realized, in pain and frustration that she couldn't get free. I saw her leg drop backwards and then pitch forward sharply. She kicked me hard in the shin. The pain was sharp and aching. Let me go! Let me go! She kicked me again, and I took the blow again. I spun her around so she lost her balance and couldn't hit me a third time. I controlled her movements with my hands on her wrists, not giving her a chance to break free or hurt me again. Stop it, bitch. We stumbled across the beige floor, hitting cabinets, drawers, and tables like ping pong balls. All I could imagine was her finally listening to me and calming down. I don't know how long we fought in the kitchen. I know that twice she fell to her knees, and I physically lifted her to her feet, yelling at her to calm the hell down. But then I heard the sound of the front door opening and a deep voice yelling, "Police! Put your hands up!" Looking over my shoulder, I saw two police officers in Nassau County uniforms, one with his hand on something on his waistband, and the other standing behind me with one hand behind his back and the other pointing at me. "Get out of my house! Get the hell out of here!" I growled. The cop behind me extended his arm forward, and a jet of some kind of aerosol can hit my face, nose, and part of my open mouth. It felt like someone had poured acid on my eyeballs and then scraped them off with a cheese grater. I tried to scream, but all I managed was a high-pitched shriek as my throat constricted from the vile taste in my mouth. I couldn't draw in air, couldn't breathe, the membranes of my nose blazing with 100 needles. I let go of Myra, even in this state of pain, making sure she was standing behind me, her body covering her from the two thug cops who had come here, and I heard something that sounded like a gunshot, and then someone set my spine on fire. God knows how many thousands of volts raced through my shattered nerve endings as the stun gun the second cop had fired at me released its charge into my chest. I fell onto my back, unable to stop the spasms in my limbs and the shaking in my legs. I guessed I'd fallen into the spilled beer, but it was too warm, and it spread over my jeans, letting me know I'd wet myself on top of everything else. In the distance, I could hear my children crying. I heard Myra sobbing. I heard Rachel Miller trying to comfort my wife and telling her she was scared and called the police. I also heard myself being lifted to my feet and handcuffed behind my back as the nearest police officer said, "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand the rights I just read to you?" If only I could unclench the muscles clenching my jaw, I'd answer his damn question. Next chapter. I sat on that unyielding wooden bench with my hands cuffed behind my back and chained to a hook behind me long enough for my legs to get stiff. Every time a policeman passed in front of me, I tried to look him in the eye, but they ignored me like I was a piece of shit. When I tried to address one of them, some big uniformed bastard came out from behind the counter and told me in a threatening tone, "Shut up until we're ready to talk to you." The fact that his hand was on the pepper spray on my belt, next to the taser, next to the gun, made the mess that was my brain shut the hell up. I ended up being interrogated by a sullen female officer who was clacking away at her keyboard like she wanted her fingers to probe my internal organs. She listened to my answers and typed them, ending her activity with a flurry of input before folding her hands in her lap and leaning back in her chair. A big meatball-sized cop stood nearby and watched me like a pit bull watching a wounded bird. "Mr. Skelly," she began, "you waived your right to see a lawyer, correct?" "Yes. I don't need one, and I don't have one." "You know you've been arrested for drunk and disorderly, assault, domestic disturbance, and resisting arrest." Her eyes drilled me. "Those are serious charges, and you'll have to go to Westbury to see the judge in the case. Then someone will have to drive me home because I don't have my car with me." "Mr. Skelly, you won't be able to see the judge until Monday at 9 a.m. I tried to stand up but couldn't because of the chains and restraints. This made both officers tense up and made me realize that I was totally screwed and needed to calm down. Right now. I leaned back in my chair and took a deep breath, forcing myself to relax and hoping to show them that I was calm. "So, what's going to happen to me?" "You will be sent to the Nassau County Correctional Facility in East Meadow, where you will remain until Monday morning." I was stunned. "I'm going to be sent to jail." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes, which looked like narrow windows, staring intently at me. "Yes, Mr. Skelly." The rest of my time at the police department passed like a blur, as I was shocked at how damn bad my day had turned out. The shittiest environment in the world couldn't have been better if it wasn't for what I was going through. Within half an hour, I was put through what the cops call processing, involving photographing, fingerprinting, and cataloging everything I came in with, from my shoes to my wedding ring. And then I was escorted to a police car where I was put in the back seat, handcuffed again, this time to an unliftable brace in the back seat. The trip to the Nassau Correctional Facility was short, but it felt like hours to me. That high I'd felt before had dried up, and now I felt like complete shit. Jimmy Skelly, going to jail, scaring his kids, hurting his wife. What a piece of shit. All I felt was self-pity. We turned off the Hempstead Turnpike and drove north to the Nassau Correctional Facility. The sheriff's office was just outside the barbed wire fence, the building squat like a guard dog ready to bite. There were 2 gates for entry, and we stopped in front of the first one. A couple guards with rifles, damn rifles, stopped a police car and talked to the officer for a bit, while I just stared out the window in shock. Eventually, we drove through both rows of gates and stopped in front of one of the main doors labeled Admittance. I was helped out of the car and escorted to the double steel doors. Another officer opened them and I was allowed inside the prison. I was led down a gray and white hallway where a police officer handed me over to the correctional officers. They handed me a file folder with my name written on the side tab, and then the Nassau County police officer turned and walked away. Name. I turned around, amazed that someone was addressing me. Behind the green industrial doors sat a burly male officer, a computer screen in front of him, and he was waiting for my response. The officer standing next to me, his hand holding the chain leading to the handcuffs, nudged me with his shoulder and pointed at the seated officer. Answer him. Oh. James Skelly. Mr. Skelly, you are confined to the Nassau Correctional Institution until you appear in the Nassau County Court of Common Pleas in Westbury to appear before a judge for your crimes. The time required to serve your sentence for your crimes will be offset by the time you spend here from this Wednesday until Monday morning. Do you understand? I nodded. Yes. You will be placed with the regular prisoners in Section 4, where you will be on proper behavior. Any discipline problems may result in your transfer to a separate cell and possibly an extension of your stay here. I'm not looking for trouble. Honestly. Please put all of your belongings in this basket. There are some clothes for you in this bag. Please put them on. He slid a cheap, clear bag of blue-colored clothes toward me. Meals are 2 meals a day, and if you have money in your account, you can buy other things at the commissariat. However, given that you're here temporarily for now, you probably won't have that option. They cataloged all of my belongings, put them in a cardboard garbage can, and sealed it. When I was done, they led me down a large hallway where another correctional officer opened the double doors, let us through, and closed them behind us. To the left was a series of small corridors, and to the right were large rooms with a huge stenciled number hanging above each one. We stopped in front of number 4 and waited. 1 to enter, said the officer to my left. A thin voice came from a speaker on the side of the door. 1 to enter. Step away from the door. An electronic buzzing sounded, and the double doors opened. Standing in them were 2 more correctional officers in professional uniforms and with facial expressions that tolerated no objection. Each was armed, and I could see that there were others behind the thick glass, some looking at me, others looking into the large room beyond the door. They examined me and then placed me next to a row of small doors that gave access to the 4th section. The same officer who had escorted me here noticed that I was nervous as I stood looking at the last barrier. He took my arm just above the elbow and pulled me tightly against him. Listen, Skelly, he said in a low whisper. Keep your temper, and everything will be all right. Don't steal anything foreign, watch your stuff like a hawk, and if you let any of the tougher ones rough you up, they'll be rough on you. I heard the officers order the prisoners away from the door, and 3 of them raised their rifles and put them on alert. Damn those rifles. They weren't pointing them at anyone in particular, just letting the population know they weren't going to be trifled with. I had no idea how normal any of this was, how unusual or special. All I knew was that I was completely unprepared for this and desperate for a drink. Right now, damn it. but I also knew it wasn't coming. Finally, the door opened with a metallic click, and I was ushered inside. Just outside the door was a painted box, marked on the concrete floor with a square about 4 paces square. Once I was in the square, the guard let me go, patted me on the back, and walked out of the section. I heard the door slam shut, then close again, and there it was. Jimmy Skelly was in jail for crying out loud. The room I was in was large and divided into 2 main areas: several low, simple beds that seemed to be bolted to the floor, and a second area where there were tables and long benches, also bolted to the floor. The room looked like it could fit 60 people, and with a cursory count, I concluded that it was almost completely full. "New meat!" someone shouted, and I realized I was still standing in the damn painted box. I stepped out of it and headed across the floor. Behind me was a 30-foot wide window made of thick plastic or glass through which I could see 10 correctional officers watching the people in the section. One of them brought a microphone mounted on a bendable metal stand closer to my face and squeezed it. "Skelly, bed 32. I headed into the sleeping area and saw that a simple painted sign hung by each bed, so I walked around until I came to number 32. With a trembling hand, I pressed it against it, making sure it was very firm. The blanket was wool but plain, and the pillow smelled faintly of bleach. I sighed and sat up, looking around at the men surrounding me. It was a motley bunch. Some of them looked like teachers or accountants. A few were of large build, but they didn't look like criminals. However, there was also a minority that was characterized by their toughness. Excessive tattoos, swagger in their gait, arrogance in their demeanor. There weren't that many of them, maybe only 12, but they were the alphas and the real criminals in this room. One of them appeared to be waiting for me to pay attention to him. A swarthy Hispanic man with scars on the sides of his face and a dull complexion that made me think he'd been in a fight recently. "Hi!" he exclaimed, slamming his hand on his knees and jumping up from the bed. "What are you looking at?" "Okay, I don't know shit about prison etiquette. Other than a few TV shows and maybe an Alcatraz movie with Nick Cage and James Bond, I don't know anything. I know I didn't know what to do, so I decided I would do to this fussy jerk what I would do to any other bully on the playground." I jumped out of bed and dashed across the space toward my approaching nemesis, watching with satisfaction as his gaze clouded over and his arrogant gait slowed. "I wasn't looking at anything. And now? It's different now." I saw him look back at the men standing at his bedside. 2 of them rose to their feet and slowly approached him. "Damn it, Jimmy. 11 minutes in jail, and you're already getting into a fight. 3-on-1, and where the hell are the guards? Won't they come and stop this shit?" "The hell with you, brat." He smirked, stuck out his chest, and came within 2 feet of me. It made me laugh and nervous at the same time. The first rule of fighting is to be in your zone of strength and keep the other bastard out of yours. I was a full 8 inches taller than this guy, and he was getting close enough to me that I could rip off his goddamn watch. But all he had to do was either lunge forward and hit me, or wait for me to swing and then get me on the approach. I figured I'd get him to hit me first, and the guards would see me defending myself. I was hoping for that. From the way his eyes flashed and the way his jaw tensed, I was sure I'd guessed right. His body was already closing in on my zone, and I could read him like a book. When he took a step to hit me, I stepped back, blocked his leading blow with my forearm, and then completed the move by swinging my right arm over his head, arcing it down and hitting the top of his skull. The other 2 assholes stopped and watched what was happening with their hands in the air. At the same time, I heard the overhead speaker come on, and the voice of the correctional officer say, "We have a lockdown? Lockdown. Everyone put your hands behind your head and stand at the foot of the bed. Repeat. Lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. Skelly, Morales, don't move." The main doors opened and in came too many officers with rifles. Everyone obeyed their instructions, and 4 officers stepped forward and led me and I think Morales, the guy I hit, out of the room to another part of the jail. I was put in a smaller room, 10x10, and Morales was taken to another place. Frankly, he didn't care. There was a small table and 2 chairs, again equipped with standard floor mounts. I was sat down, but not cuffed, and then left alone, where I waited only 2 minutes before a woman entered. She was in her early 40s, looking unserious. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, and her clothes were a mixture of correctional officer's clothes and a business suit. She wore no makeup, and I noticed with displeasure that she had a gun, mace, and handcuffs hanging from her belt. "Mr. James Skelly," she began, her voice coarse from excessive smoking. "You're not here to cause trouble." "I'm sorry, ma'am. All I did was sit down on the bed and look around. My name is Captain Phillips, and you will address me as such." She drummed her fingers on the table. "Mr. Morales is a member of the Iron Nation, though not a very high-ranking one. By attacking him, you may have come to their attention. Are you aware of that?" I scratched my head and sighed. "Listen, Captain Phillips. I was late for work this morning. I drank too much this afternoon. I was tasered by the police this evening, and today I was attacked by a thug I usually avoid because I happened to see him in jail. Who he is, and what the Iron Nation is, doesn't exist for me right now." She looked at her papers lying in front of her and then back at me. "You are here for a variety of reasons: drunk and disorderly, resisting arrest, assault, and battery. Since your court date isn't until Monday, you'll have to find a way to settle in and acclimatize in the 4 days and 5 nights you have ahead of you. I would advise you to keep a low profile and not come into contact with other prisoners, or you could end up here for a long time or possibly in the infirmary." "I understand. If there is another incident, we will be forced to remove you and place you in solitary confinement for your own safety. Do you understand?" I nodded. "Yes, Captain Phillips." She stood up, leaning forward. "Very good, Mr. Skelly. Allow us to return you to your section." I had to squeeze through again, after which I was allowed to return to bunk 32. When I got there, I was horrified to see that my pillow and blanket were gone. "Great, Jimmy. Now some bastard has taken your pillow and blanket." I didn't say anything, but just wandered down the quiet row while the inmates watched me, waiting for me to do something. When I got to a vacant bed, I pulled the blanket off of it. Looking around, I saw several prisoners sleeping on 2 pillows. I looked around at all of them, trying not to make eye contact, and noticed that a few of the regular guys had a second pillow, most likely taken from unused beds. I cleared my throat. I'm not looking for trouble. While the correctional officers were talking to me, my pillow seems to have disappeared. Maybe someone has a spare one they'd be willing to give me for the night? No one answered. I shrugged and was about to go back to my bed when suddenly a voice called out, "What would you give for it?" Looking closer, I saw a rather well-fed guy with a 3-day growth and rather greasy blonde hair lying on my bed. He had a third pillow in his hands, which he was hugging, bestowing me with his version of a stinky stare. "What do you want?" I tried to remember every prison show I'd ever seen. "I don't have any cigarettes to trade." The guy chuckled, as did a few others. "Nah, man, don't." He tossed the pillow up and caught it. "I need your rolls tomorrow." "My rolls?" "Yes, breakfast rolls. I want them." I shrugged. "Okay, breakfast rolls done." He tossed them to me. "My name is Scott. You can call me Squatch." "Thanks, Squatch." He waved his hand dismissively. "You're welcome. Just want your rolls." I went back to my bed with a new pillow and blanket, lay down and let myself forget. All I could picture was Myra's face as we spun around the kitchen, her eyes full of pain. So much pain and sadness. I slept like hell. End of part 1. Part the 2nd of may be coming out in 10 hours. Write in the comments if you're waiting for it. Also, give a like under this video and subscribe to my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video.